Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com, and this is The Gutters, my audio journal. Today is Sunday, July 12th, 2020. And what the hell's been going on? Well, given what's been going on with protesting across the world against racism and police brutality, I don't really know what to say or that I should. You know, as many people across the podcast sphereverse said and did, commented on, that now is not the time to promote your stuff. Now is the time to shut up and listen. And I tried my best to do that. But I wanted to do something. I wanted to help in some way. So I just retweeted other voices on Twitter for the most part. And that's what I did, or actively that's what I've done. But, I feel like I should be doing more. I don't know. I struggle with this. So what should I be doing? How best to help? I don't feel like what I've done, which is so minuscule compared to what's going on, that's not enough. I don't know. Black lives still matter, and the police are just fucked up in the way that they've handled these protests. I just don't know what to say. So, like I said, I've been listening. I've been trying to listen and read and understand. And to help with that, there have been some podcasts that I've listened to over the last several weeks that either give perspectives on personal perspectives on things, or they're reporting about situations and people that are going through this, or they're simply the voices of the affected, or Black men and women who have talked about their experiences. And so I have listened a lot to the Daily Rios episodes. Peter was putting out a bunch of short audio clips of people in their own voices, or people reading quotes from other folks that having to do with racism in America, and I think some other topics as well that are closely related. Those have been very affecting, and of course Peter, he's much better at this than I am. He knew what to do. He knew how to do it, I think, the right way. So if you haven't listened to the Daily Rios episodes, especially those in the last few weeks, make sure you go back and listen to those. Friend George from Meanwhile the Podcast, he got together with his co-hosts, Rodney and Kristen, on an episode to talk about this very stuff. The episode was called A Break from Crazy World, and I found that to be pretty powerful too. And then other friend Damien on his Sleepy Vlog 85 also had some comments at the end of his comic book section of it that I thought was pretty apropos as well. Anyway, check the show notes. I'll post some links for places to donate to. So the other craziness in the world, of course, is and continues to be is COVID-19. Maybe I'm sure this will be a continued or a continuing segment on this on the gutters. So my state of Idaho moved into its stage 4, which is basically everything is open and people are responsible for maintaining their distance and supposed to be wearing masks, but oh my God, the response to this, generally speaking, not just in Idaho, but generally speaking, has just been incomprehensible. I can't fathom why people are not protecting themselves and others, why we're being so fucking selfish. I guess I can respect your opinion if you disagree with that. That being told to wear a mask is somehow infringing on your freedoms, I guess. But Jesus fucking Christ, grow up. So anyway, things are in my little neck of the woods are a bit of a crapshoot. I'm being overly critical because the small town in which I live just recently, the mayor, because things were starting to spike, as was predicted when various states were opening up, or maybe all of them. So I think some states in the U.S. didn't even close down, basically, and then others were starting to open up. Some faster than others, like Idaho, Washington much slower. But things started like I said, as predicted, started going up, and people were getting sick, and more people were dying. And now we lead the world. Yay, America! We lead the world in COVID infections, and I think also deaths. So you can go check my math, my sources on that, or my data on that. Go check my data on that. But last I thought I read, it was, we're leading the world. Yay, America. Like I said, fortunately, though, I live in a small town. The mayor just issued a decree stating that everybody who is out and about should wear a mask, which I can say that most people I saw when I went grocery shopping yesterday were doing so. Although I was just trying to think, were the number of people who were wearing a mask but not wearing it properly, i.e. over both their mouth and nose. Oh man, every time I see someone who's wearing a mask and they don't have it over their nose, I'm just like, are you stupid? But whether or not they outnumbered the number of people who were not wearing a mask at all, even though they're supposed to, and businesses in my little town got the signs up. At least no one's yelling at employees, screaming about their precious rights. What about my right to live, you fuckers? Okay, sorry. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So also at work, we had certain conditions. I think I talked about this on the last Gutters episode. We have certain conditions that we had to meet because our home office is based in Washington. So they were basically following the Washington state guidelines. And so we had gone to the first stage, which is basically everybody who wants to could work from home, with some exceptions, of course, because we still have to produce the things that my company produces. And because of that, in part because of that, I've been going to work, but for the most part, the office was pretty much empty. And so that was probably okay for me. But then they defined their stages. We actually there are 4 stages for us. We actually made it to condition 2, and that's about the time right before things started spiking around the country. And so just a couple weeks ago, they moved us back down to condition the first stage. And also on top of that, they said, okay, we're going back to stage 1. And for those of us that are still in the office, wear masks. Now, I wish they had done that the first time around. And, mea culpa, I wish I had taken it upon myself to do that. So, personal responsibility too. So I'm gladly wearing masks when I'm at work, whenever I have to be around other people. Now, they said you don't have to wear a mask when you're sequestered basically at your desk, or if you're, obviously when you're eating, but maintain social distance. And so I've continued to do that at work. Not everybody at work is doing that, all of that. So I try to stay away from them. So some podcasts about COVID-19 that I've been listening to, I don't know if these are in any way helping me process it, or if it's just making my anxiety increase. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how bad things really are out there, because here where I live, it's not. We've had very few cases, confirmed cases. We've had no deaths in our county, I don't think, or maybe it's very few. I need to go look it up. So, but I listened to This American Life, episode 709. That was very hard to listen to because of the stories in it that are from this particular hospital that they had interviewed people from. But that hospital staff dealing with COVID-19 patients, it was kind of haunting, actually. So yeah, there's all that. Be safe, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands, all that stuff. Basically, just be a decent human being to everybody else. And I know I don't need to say that to you. I hope I don't anyway. I imagine you, dear listeners, to be, I hope, more in line with how I feel about this kind of stuff. I assume you are. I don't know why, but I generally think that most people who are fans of comic books and geeks and whatnot are generally pretty progressive people. So I'm sure that's a gross overgeneralization, I know, but boy, I just can't fathom why someone would not want to help protect not only yourself, your family, your friends, your fellow human beings. I don't understand that. Your precious freedoms are not worth the lives of those that you could impact in that way. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of masks and social distancing, it just continues, doesn't it? Our granddaughters have been at their mother's for the month of June, and so we got them back at the beginning of July. I don't know if I've talked about this specifically. About, 13 years ago, 14 years ago? No, 13 years ago, my wife... Well, I should back up even further. Our older daughter had some issues, and she had a couple children, the two granddaughters that live with us, Gabby and Maddie. She had them young, and she was into drugs, and she was not making the best decisions. And there was a point where basically we felt, my wife and I, that she was neglecting her babies. And so after talking with our older daughter, this is not Brittany, by the way, Brittany is our younger daughter, we brought the girls home, or actually my wife brought the girls home, and they've been living with us pretty much ever since. So, but there was, we felt that the girls were not being well cared for when they were with their mother. And so we eventually had got custody, basically, of them. But the girls still have to go visit their mother every other weekend during the year and during most of the summer. So we have them during the month of July, and they go to their mothers for the other 2 months of the summer. So anyway, they were there at their mother's for the month of June, yes. And we found out later that, well, during their visit, we found out when we were talking to them on the phone, but also found out other things after they got back. But they were, that family was not really treating the situation seriously, and the girls had been socializing with others. They were going to these group things that that family goes to. They weren't wearing masks. The girls said they asked to be able to wear them, and they were told no, they couldn't. There's not much we can do about that situation, except try to coach the girls and let them know the severity of it. I mean, for crying out loud, one of the family members up there said that the coronavirus was a bacteria that could be vanquished by taking ibuprofen. So anyway, like I said, they've been up there. We got them home, and Kitra and I were a bit concerned, knowing what we know, what they could be infected. They can infect us. So hell, I even had them wear face masks, and I wore one on the drive home after I picked them up. So anyway, it's now been a couple weeks, and we don't appear to be infected. In fact, Madison, the younger granddaughter, appeared to be getting sick. She sounded a bit congested. I didn't think it was anything, but my wife wanted to make sure that, given the situation now, that she was in fact not didn't contract coronavirus. So we talked to her doctor, and she got a test done, and it came back negative. So that's good. But we'll have to do this at the end of August, early September, when the girls come back again. So a much better topic regarding family. I mentioned Brittany earlier, but late in May, we had an opportunity to go down and visit my daughter in the Boise area, and our granddaughter Hadley. And so we kept our distance. No kissing, no getting close. With our faces. My daughter's taking this very seriously, unlike our other daughter. And in fact, we almost didn't go. But we're being very careful. Brittany's being extra careful, and there's a reason for that. She's expecting another child again. Not that she wasn't being extra careful anyway. That's just my daughter. Brittany's like that. So anyway, so I'm going to be a grandfather again, which makes me extremely happy. But I'm very nervous, and my daughter is extremely anxious about this. They were trying to get pregnant before all of this coronavirus stuff hit, and it just wasn't happening. And this actually was a bit of a surprise. But she's doing an excellent job, and I think much better than I would have given if I were in her shoes. If I were, if we were a family expecting a new child, I don't think I would be as smart as she has been about this. But regardless, we had a lovely time, even despite the restrictions. But I tell you, it was so hard not to be able to give my daughter and granddaughter a hug. But it's the right thing to do. But what we did, the visit was great. We had fun. We had some lovely dinners. We got stuff. We ordered stuff in, had it delivered. Made some food there, but we didn't really go out and do anything. We went for a walk around the neighborhood one day. I think there was one other thing that we did that I'm blanking on at the moment, that we actually went somewhere, but it wasn't like we were around any people. But we also, what else did we do? Brittany introduced us to this new game, Disney Villainous. That was kind of fun. So we played that a couple times, and then Kitra and I bought it so that we could play it with the girls, which we did over the 4th of July weekend that we were all home for. And then finally, just to mention, I bought Hadley, and so she will turn 3 as of this recording later this week. And I love to buy her books and read books to her. And so I bought this one book, what was it called? The Monster at the End of This Book, the one with Grover. It's is it the Little Golden Books? That's one of those books. Anyway, I read that to her, and then the next day, I got up in the morning, and she came over and wanted me to read the book again. So I read it. So I take that as a success. She actually liked it, and then I also read her as I was cleaning my office a few weeks back, I found this old ABC book that I made when I was in the 6th grade. And so I took that down and read that to her, and I said, A is for, and then I had sixth grade me had drawn an apple or something, whatever it was, whatever the thing was. And I was trying to get her to interpret my art, because believe me, there are some things in there where you really have to interpret what those things are. But she did a really good job. There's only a few things that she didn't know, like xylophone. She doesn't know what that is. But that was delightful. I wish I could do that more. We were supposed to. There was a plan to have a birthday party with just close family, and I think Brittany was planning it at a park to where there would not be a lot of people around, that kind of a thing. But considering the spike, especially in her part of the state, she decided, like the week after we got back, that she wasn't going to do that. So we're not going to be able to spend Hadley's birthday with her, which makes me very sad. But again, sacrifice for the betterment of others. That should be the watch phrase for this frickin' country. All right, I gotta stop stepping up on that soapbox, or maybe I don't. So anyway, we had a great time with Brittany and her family, and we also had a great time with the girls once they got back, and we've been, well, actually, this is even before, I have to say. Before they left us in June, we had, to help keep our minds off the collapse of civilization as we know it, we have been, staying home, not going out to do anything, much of anything at all. Definitely not going to the movies. So we've been watching a bunch of stuff at home, and I thought this was kind of fun what we did. I think I talked about this in a previous Gutters episode, where we are introducing our teenage granddaughters that are to what we consider classic movies. And by that, we mean the movies that Kitra and I grew up with that we love, like Top Gun, for example. But like I said, in May, right before they left, we had started watching some movie series. And Kitra and the girls wanted to watch the Lord of the Rings series. So we started with The Hobbit, the 3 Hobbit movies. And then we went into the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well. And Madison really liked the Hobbit movies better than the Lord of the Rings. I have to say she is not correct in that assessment, but also we had watched the expanded versions of the Lord of the Rings, and oh my God, I don't know if it was just because I was tired from work. As we were watching those during the week, we'd watch like one movie a night. Those 3+ hour movies are just, I see why they cut them down for the theatrical releases, because while it's fine filmmaking, whatever, it does not need to be that long. They're not bad movies, of course. They're beautifully made. I couldn't handle it. It was too much Lord of the Rings stuff for me. But what I did enjoy was we moved on to watching the 4 Indiana Jones movies, and one of which, the second one, The Temple of Doom, I had actually never seen before. I had watched the first movie and then skipped the second for some reason and watched the third and the fourth movie. I even went to the theater to see the Crystal Skull movie. I took Brittany actually to see that one. And so we watched all 4 of those, and I still think The Last Crusade is my favorite one. What else here? Oh yeah, we did watch, we started watching the Jason Bourne movies. We watched the first two. Yes, the first 2, because we have the first 2. I, for some reason, have the 4th movie, but not the 3rd. So we got to get back to that and watch those. But I did inform my wife that I want to watch with everyone all of the Star Trek movies. So she did her best not to show her disappointment on her face at that suggestion. But we shall see. I definitely am going to watch them. I'd like to watch them with the family, but whatever. other things we've been watching to entertain ourselves and to keep our mind off the growing anxiety that we all feel. But we have been watching this wonderful, amazing show. I don't remember if I've talked about it, but even if I have, I'm gonna talk about it again. This is on Amazon Prime, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. What an amazing show! I love this show. There are 3 seasons available. There was a 4th announced that should have come out at the end of this year, but given what's going on filming wise and the shutdown and whatnot, who knows if we or when or if we'll get this the return of the show. But God, I hope we get it eventually, because it is amazing. If you don't know about this show, it's about a late 50s woman whose husband he has a brief affair, or no, not affair. I can't remember if he actually had the affair, if that came later. Anyway, but he does leave her because he's trying his hand at stand-up comedy. He's not that great. It turns out she's the one who comes up with the funny lines, and she sort of, well, after he, I'm really selling this, aren't I? After he leaves her after a failed attempt at this stand-up routine, he's like, I can't do this anymore. This is not the person I want to be, and he leaves her. And then he gets together with his secretary. So I don't know. Anyway, so she breaks down and then has this wonderful stream of consciousness comedy set, and ends up getting arrested. Meets Lenny Bruce. I think that maybe that happened in that first episode. Anyway, this embarks her on a career. She wants to be a stand-up comic, and so we've been watching this for the 3 seasons now, and it's wonderful. Like I said, it's set in the late 50s. Now we're in 1960 at the time of the 3rd season, and it's great. I love that time period, just from basically the way things looked, the clothes, the fashion, the cars, the architecture. I certainly don't care for the sexism and all that crap that came with that time period. But it looks beautiful. It's written and produced by Amy Sherman Palladino. So the dialogue is fast. It's witty. It's funny. Although I will say, even though Mrs. Maisel is the comedian in the show, her manager Susie gets all the funny lines. There are times when Susie shoots off a one-liner that just makes me literally, I have tears coming streaming on my cheeks because she's so funny. Yeah, it's great. At the time of this recording, we have 1 episode left of the 3rd season, and I'm dreading it, but also anxious to watch it. So. Recently, I also started watching Star Trek Voyager again. This is a show that I watched when it debuted, in 95? I think. Anyway, I watched pretty much all of that first season, maybe all of first season, maybe a little bit of the second season, but I didn't watch it. It's the only Star Trek series that I have not watched all of. Well, maybe with the exception of the animated series. I don't know that I think I've seen all the episodes. I haven't confirmed whether I've seen all the episodes. But anyway, I Star Trek Voyager is something that I would dip into every once in a while. Over its 7 years, I did watch the series finale, of course, when it aired originally, but I've never watched all the episodes. So I decided, in part for the new podcast that I just released in the feed, Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast, I would start watching the show, and so that I could end up talking about it. But really, it's just because I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and it was a glaring hole in my Star Trek experience. So I started watching it. I'm almost through the first season now. It's, again, not that great, but what first season of a show, generally speaking, is, except for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but that may be an anomaly. But anyway, Star Trek television shows have traditionally not picked up until the third season anyway. So, maybe I'm judging it too harshly. But the viewing experience has been enhanced a bit because in the last couple weeks, I had somehow found out about the Delta Flyers podcast, which is Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil, both of whom starred in Voyager. They are doing a Voyager podcast. So they are essentially, they're sort of recapping the episode and talking about or giving their reactions to that episode, especially in terms of what they were doing, how they approached the scenes that they were in, just kind of like the overall acting experience that they had during that particular episode. So that I appreciate. So it's no West Wing Weekly in terms of insight and production values, especially. But I appreciate that these two guys are getting together during the shutdown, the COVID-19 shutdown, and are providing this kind of insight to what they're doing. So that's helping to get through Voyager right now, but we'll see how it goes. For the weekend of Juneteenth, HBO released the Watchmen series, that one season or the miniseries. Since they had already announced a while back that they would not continue with the show, that the one season was it. So that I think really we should refer to that as a miniseries. But anyway, they released it for free on some streaming services. So for us, that was Hulu. So I spent that weekend watching all 9 episodes. I think it was. So basically Friday night watched 3, Saturday watched, we actually watched 4 that day. And then we finished it off on Sunday with the final 2 episodes. But when this was first announced, I had especially when I saw the trailer, I'm like, nope, have no desire to watch this whatsoever. But then after it came out, a bunch of people that I follow on Twitter, I don't know that anybody I know personally had watched it, but people were talking about this like it was the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, what? Really? So I was anxious. By the time that HBO announced this free viewing, I was anxious to watch it. Now, they released it for free over the Juneteenth timeframe because it does deal a lot with racism. In the opening sequence, a black police officer is murdered by a racist. And I will say, I love Watchmen, the comic book. I actually like the movie adaptation that they did. It's probably the best thing Zack Snyder has done. But what this series did really well, like I said, so okay, let me back up. I watched the first episode and I was wowed. I was floored. I was like, wow, it's rare that I see a show where the first episode so totally envelops me in that world, like this one did. I understood everything about it in terms of what it's going for, the theme, the setting, the characters. I was just amazed. And then I watched the rest of it, and for the most part, when they're dealing with the social injustices of the time frames that this miniseries is set. So it's not just present day. It's also dealing with stuff in the past where they're dealing with, or when they're depicting some of the Watchmen characters that those of us who've read the book or even watched the movie would be familiar with. That stuff was great. And so there were about 4 episodes where they really leaned into that aspect, the social injustices depicted in that world, which are mirrored in our own. So it's not like they're going way afar from real world racism. But then they also deal with the Watchmen universe aspects of the show, and that's where they lost me. I didn't care for that stuff. I was like, it was a bit campy and hokey, and I just didn't care for it. And where the two things intersected, those were okay. There was one episode where we I don't know how much to say about this. I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the major characters, they deal with one of the major characters and his experience with the other major, the lead character of the show. Anyway, that was really good. But yeah, the other stuff is not so much. So I think it was, so I really, really loved the first episode. I think episodes 6 and 8 were particularly very good. And that's, like I said, those are the ones where the show really delved into racism. But yeah, the rest of it was kind of a slog. It was, entertaining to a point. It was just, I kind of think of it as that part of it anyway. It's essentially a polished version of a CW superhero show. I realize there's a lot of CW superhero show fans out there. I am not one of them. Okay, but anyway, speaking of CW shows, we did watch the first couple episodes of Stargirl, albeit on the DC Universe app. But it's also, I think, is it debut on the DC Universe app and then was on CW or vice versa? I forget. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've heard since then that the second season is coming and it will be on CW. I don't know if it's not going to be on the DC Universe app or what. I don't know. The whole HBO Max thing and DC Universe, it's all a bit up in the air for me. I don't know what's going on with it, but man, I hope the comic book aspect of the DCU app doesn't go away because I love that. Anyway, so we watched the first couple episodes of Stargirl. I liked it a bit better than most of the CW shows that I've seen. But, the overly simplistic villains and the way Stripesy is portrayed by Luke Wilson, not to my liking. No. And God, I was listening to some other podcasts talking about Stargirl, and they were one in particular was praising Joel McHale's guest appearance in the first episode, and I have to say, no, thank you. I did not like that at all. Anyway, I hope the show gets better, but it's not bad. It's just, it's a bit of that campy, hokey CW quality to it. What else? Oh, it's funny. I'm looking at my bookshelf and I see Superman Red Sun, and that's apropos because I watched the animated movie adaptation of that recently as well. This is going to sound like a naysayer for all this stuff, but as with most of the recent DC animated movie adaptations, it was meh. It was, it was fine. It was all right. At least it wasn't as crass and, quite frankly, bloody as some of the more recent movies have been, so that's okay. I actually did like one thing about it. They did resist the urge to put Lois and Superman together as a couple in this. In this adaptation, Lois Lane is the wife of Lex Luthor, and they remain a committed couple. Although, why she would be with Lex, I don't understand. Even that Red Sun Superman Red Sun Lex, he's a dick. But anyway, they stay together, and I like that. So, she stayed true to her husband. So I appreciate that they resisted that urge. A couple more things just to tell you about. Just last night, so this is late breaking the gutters information. Just last night, we watched speaking of adaptations, we watched The Old Guard, which is the movie version of the comic book by the same title, written by Greg Rucka and illustrated by Leandro Fernandez. So the movie, this is on Netflix, starring Charlize Theron, playing the lead character of Andy. That was really good. That was really, really good. I quite enjoyed that. My wife, who's not a big comic book movie person, she said she liked it. And in fact, I have to say, I think I enjoy the movie more than the comic book. I said this on Twitter last night too, but it bears repeating. I love Greg Rucka's writing and the comic books he produces, but that one just did not do it for me. And so I skipped the sequel as well. But if they come out with a sequel to the movie, which they totally set it up for a sequel, I will watch that because that was damn good. And then finally, one other thing that kind of ties back to where I started with this episode. But I'm jumping back and forth through time through this. This is not chronologically ordered, but July 3rd, the family and I sat down and watched Hamilton on Disney+. Now, I have been wanting to watch the show for years. And in fact, I bought the soundtrack to the musical a good 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, I think. Definitely at least 2 years ago. And so we have been listening to that off and on throughout these last couple years. So I kind of know the story. I know the performances, so to speak, but I've never seen a live performance of Hamilton. In fact, just this year, I think, or maybe it was next year, we were going to be able to see a traveling Broadway version of Hamilton. We were going to go to that. But who knows when that will actually occur now. So this was a great opportunity. When it was announced that they were going to release a recording of one of the live performances by the original cast to theaters, it was supposed to be later this year. I was extremely excited. I couldn't wait to actually go to the movies. And then, of course, COVID-19 hit. And then, thankfully, Hamilton's producers, Lin-Manuel Miranda and Disney, partnered up and released the movie through the Disney Plus streaming service, which made getting Disney Plus worth it to me. Can't say that we watch a whole lot of that, so we might have to revisit whether we want to continue paying for it. Regardless, we watched that July 3rd. It was amazing. There were a few times where I was just like overcome. You have to remember, I love theater. I actually love musical theater. I didn't always. I remember in middle school, we watched, I can't remember what it was now. We watched something that was a musical, and I remember sitting there through the whole thing going, oh, this is so stupid. Nobody would just start singing, because I was stupid back then. But in the intervening years, I have come to love musical theater. And then when my daughter Brittany got into that, I was just pleased as punch. And now Madison also really enjoys musical theater as well. In fact, we watched Newsies the other night, even though that's not particularly one of my favorites. But I watched that with her and was very satisfied with that production. So anyway, back to Hamilton though, just amazing. I miss going to see or miss live theater. More than movies, I would prefer to see a live performance of something. So, boy, I hope we can kick this virus in the ass and get back to those kinds of things. But anyway, Hamilton, I have to say, if as I did, you listen to the soundtrack and you're like, oh yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda is the star of the show. And yes, technically he is. But watching the performance, I have to say, Daveed Diggs and Philippa Sue, they were the stars of the show. Which is weird because when Miranda plays Hamilton, the show is named Hamilton. It's about Hamilton, but those two and their performances were the outstanding parts of the show for me. And what better way to celebrate America's birthday than the telling of the War of Independence in our early years as a nation, but played by people, by actors who are people of color in the roles, and using a style of music that also came from immigrants. As one of the very popular lines in the musical is that it got applause in the performance that we watched.
Monsieur Hamilton, Monsieur Lafayette, in command where you belong. Are you saying no sweat? We're finally on the field. We've had quite a run. Immigrants, we get the job done.
So, boy, that was that was an incredible performance. If you have Disney Plus, I highly, highly recommend it. Just stop what you're doing right now, turn this off, and go watch Hamilton. In fact, both Gabby and Maddie have already watched it again. I haven't. They've as they've been home during the summer, they have watched that without me. But not everybody agrees that Hamilton is the best thing in the world. After a week or so after we watched the performance, I started seeing things on Twitter, rumblings about people who have a problem with Hamilton, specifically how it kind of downplayed or overlooked the fact that many of the characters, many of the male characters involved, owned slaves, and there is some talk about slavery in the show, but apparently that wasn't enough. To Miranda's credit, he basically came back with, yes, let's talk about these things. And while I understand the impulse of that reaction, it's Miranda was adapting a musical to a story, a history book written by somebody else, and to try and tell the story in an entertaining way. Some things are not going to be in there. Some things are going to be compressed or told differently than what actually happened to fit the narrative of that particular story. That's how things are adapted. Could they have done, talked more about the slavery thing? Maybe they should have, but it wouldn't change anything. You can't go back in the past and make George Washington not have owned slaves. I don't know. I guess I see the point, but I also see like I said, when you're adapting something, you're trying to tell a story, and some things aren't part of that story or aren't as, and I know how this is going to sound, but they're not as important to the story. But, it does make me think. Art often is a reflection of our society. And so how much responsibility does the art that is created to present all sides, or more present certain aspects more than others? I don't know. How much nuance do we have? How much nuance do we need, considering that this is an entertainment form, not an historical document? I don't know. It's a fascinating subject to me, but I certainly don't think that Disney Plus should remove Hamilton, which I think some people were saying. And this gets into the whole cancel culture thing that has long been around, but is being highly politicized at the moment. Certain things should go away, in my opinion. Other things that are being called to go away shouldn't. Hamilton is one of them. At the very least, even if you're not satisfied with how history is depicted in this adaptation, at least it's being talked about. And I think it's very important to talk about those kinds of things and not just ignore them or say that it's heritage to keep certain things around. See, that's where I'm like, that's one of the things that should be canceled. Confederate heritage that's just an oxymoron to me. So yeah, even though, that's a piece of entertainment that I quite enjoyed, there's some controversy about it. Decide for yourself, I suppose. But I quite liked it, and we'll watch it again, and we'll talk about it with other people as well. So I guess that's it for the Gutters episode. I just wanted to, after the last one, I can't even remember when I released that last Gutters episode, but that was, we have a new normal now. And while I was quite anxious about, well, I still am quite anxious about where things were in the Gutters episode, I guess I'm getting used to it. It's the new normal. Still don't like it. I'm still very concerned about it. In fact, I was reading some things this morning before I came down to record about how people are, well, the fact that people are dying and how they're dying from this virus, and it's not pretty. And we're not immune. And even though you may not be having a lot of activity in your area, that doesn't mean that it won't hit you. And go back to what I was saying at the top of the show. We have a responsibility to each other. So fucking do it. Please. Thanks for listening.